Hello, and welcome to None of the Above. My name is Steve Nemirovsky, and I'm your host. I wanted to start today's program with a bit of good news. For those of you that may be regulars at this point, we haven't been on long enough to have regulars, but for those of you who have been regulars and may have seen one of our earlier shows, we did a segment on a local citizen lobbyist group that was trying to resolve some problems in Basalt, Colorado, where people are living in a trailer park, and the trailer park is going to be revised for some other civic improvements, and there's been issues about relocation. Well, in the local paper yesterday, it was reported that an anonymous financial angel has stepped up and is now going to be providing this group with some financial support, as reported, that will help them secure mortgages or other financing so they can find alternative housing. So congratulations on that success, and hopefully this is the kind of good news thing we're trying to promote here, that when you get active and you voice your message and you do it professionally and you do it openly in the right way, good things can happen. So again, congratulations. On our last show, we started our conversation about campaign finance reform. We were talking to Peter Wallison, and on today's show we're going to continue with part 2. And again, for those of you that may not have seen that show, what we started talking about are the problems of campaign finance. And we drilled down a bit and talked about the difference between hard money and soft money. And we hit on a topic called incumbency protection that derives from Peter's book, and I think is a very important notion to focus on. And again, in the last show, we also spent some time walking through some of the elements of incumbency protection. After I was looking at the tapes from the show, I realized, however, that we kind of glossed over some very important issues related to understanding campaign finance reform. And before we get to part 2, I wanted to spend some time talking about those. And particularly, 2 important court decisions that occurred after Peter's book was written, and then kind of a legal maneuvering that has tied some things together that I think has exacerbated the campaign finance situation. And again, I wanted to spend some time to get you caught up on that before we move forward with our discussion. There were 2 very important cases decided in 2010, and I've got them on the board here. One is the Citizens United case, and the other one is the Speech Now case. You may have heard of these because they've really turned the world of campaign finance upside down, and they have really exaggerated the problem to, I think, an uncontrollable scale. In the Citizens United case, the Supreme Court basically decided that corporations and unions can make unlimited expenditures. This is a reversal of long-time law that basically had limited significantly the corporate ability to make contributions, and now has turned that again on its head, and corporations and unions are now essentially allowed to make unlimited expenditures. Now, this is primarily on the soft money side, as we talked about before, but the soft money side is really where all the action is when you add up the expenditure in campaign dollars. The second decision that's really critical to understand is the Speech Now versus FEC decision. And what that decision basically said was that independent expenditure committees can receive unlimited contributions. This is the world of super PACs. You've heard this term, super PACs. Well, PACs were political action committees. They were able to raise money and get involved in, again, on the soft money side. But now we have these so-called super PACs, because the amount of funds that are pouring in is just staggering, beyond anything we've ever seen before. And it played out in the last election cycle with these super PACs just really dominating the airwaves and dominating the media. Finally, however, if you had only those 2 decisions, it still would not have been as problematic as what I think has occurred with the third step here, and that is the people that are setting up super PACs and setting up other organizations to take in these dollars now have started to use nonprofit status to avoid disclosure. And to me, this is probably the most troubling part of all. When it comes to campaign finance, I've always felt that if the Republicans and the Democrats and their supporters and their soft money side is essentially raising the same amount of money and they're kind of killing each other equally, maybe I shouldn't worry or we shouldn't worry. But now we're in an environment where these funds are going to be transacted, these funds are going to be donated and used, and we will not know who is making these contributions. We will not have the type of transparency that I think is essential for politics. And at some point, I think we're going to have to take that on and deal with it. So you got the combination of these 3 elements. Citizens United, Speech Now, and the use of nonprofit status to avoid disclosure. Again, all of these things have occurred since Peter wrote his book, and we just didn't get to them on the last show, so I wanted to make sure we covered them before we moved ahead.